I'm going to have people introduce themselves. My name's Nancy Cross. I'm the Director of Operations for the City of St. Louis, and the Eco Devo Committee meetings come under my work within the city. We meet, it's based on a board bill and an ordinance that was passed in 2017. We have a number of people with us. I'm going to have people go around and introduce themselves. We have a bigger collection of people on this board. I don't see Aaron Williams, and he'll probably be joining us soon. But I think we're going to just go around and say who people are, and then we will have a quorum, I believe, when we go. So Jim Dwyer, I'm going to just announce who's on the board and voting members. It's Jim Dwyer, Christine Ingracia, Dr. Kimberly Johnson, I believe. Am I correct, Doctor? No.
I'm not a doctor, but just
okay. Kimberly Johnson. Donald Malone, are you a doctor?
No, I'm not.
I gave you all extra titles because you're from the school department. So, okay.
I would have took it if it didn't come with a education tax bill.
Okay. April Griffin, who is the head of affordable housing for the city, and Rich Bradley, who's the public engineer, I think, and president of the Board of Public Service, are all the voting members on this committee. The other person that's going to join us at some point is Aaron Williams, who's a community leader from the 11th Ward and the Ville area, but he's supposed to be on at some point. People that are going to present today, I will do the public safety portion because they're not here, and Rich Bradley will probably help me with that. Valerie Russell, who's the Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Human Services, will do their presentation. Noel Pfeffer is not on yet. Kevin Ellison is from his staff, and he's monitoring, and we're going to bring Noel in from another meeting to do the piece on the community development division. The other person on the committee, Don Rowe, who's the head of planning and urban development, is here, and he will do the PDA piece of the meeting. And I think Demi Braggs is here from SLATE, and she will be presenting on the workforce development piece as well. So I think we're ready to go. Does anyone have any questions as of now?
Nancy, the top of my computer still says the content of the meeting is being sent by a third party. I don't want to click OK.
Mine is not saying that any longer.
Okay.
Does anybody else is still saying that?
Mine does. This is Don.
Mine did. I just hit OK.
Yeah, I said okay as well.
I mean, I think the point is that Nancy said it's not okay.
Well,
Tony, were you able to take them off the meeting?
Yes, that has been removed, so I don't know how you'll be doing it. That person is gone.
Well, is this for recording? Because the message says this meeting is being recorded and its contents is being sent to a third party. It's not, it doesn't say the AI read AI is no longer up here. So I took this as something different.
It is on YouTube. It's being recorded and it's on YouTube.
So we should hit OK to clear it?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't want to, ruin anything.
Not yet.
We just all jump back on. So for this meeting, there isn't a standing chair, but we do need a motion to appoint or reappoint a chair. Jim Dwyer has been the chair for as long as I think I've been doing this, which is not a long time. I've only been here a couple of years, but we would need a motion to appoint a chair, and so we'll take nominations for that.
I move to appoint as the continual chair.
Okay.
Is
there a second? April?
A second. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
I was.
Are you going to ask me to do a roll call each time, or are you going to be okay with?
Oh, I think when you do the substantive, to make the formal recommendation to the Board of Aldermen, the roll is sufficient. And And if you could remind everyone that when they're voting to turn their picture on.
Right. Okay, so for the chair, it's where it's sufficient when we're doing the content of what we're passing, we will take a roll call.
Yeah, I heard no one
Okay.
opposed to the
Okay.
appointment.
Okay, so Jim, you have been, I didn't ask you if you were willing to be the chair.
Well, it's too late now.
Right. But so Jim will run the meeting and I'll just do the technical parts. Barbara is the attorney for the one of the city councilors and has been the attorney for this committee for a number of years, but I'll help move it. But Barbara, you and I between us will have notes on what it is, and I'll make sure we have the people that need to be called for the roll call so that doesn't get confusing.
Terrific.
Can I
Well-
add something, Nancy? I
Sure.
was a little paused when you were asking about the chair being reappointed because I see an email was just sent where Aaron, who you said would be joining us, he said he doesn't think that he ever received the link from
Okay.
STL TV, and he also said he would have to get off at 10. So I just wanted to mention that if somebody could shoot him the link in case he can jump on.
Yep. Okay, I'll do that now. Why don't we start? So Jim, go forth and I will figure out how to send this to him at this time.
All right, terrific. Thank you, Nancy. So good morning, everyone. The first order of business, now that we've elected a chair, is the approval of minutes from last year's meeting, May 6, 2024. I have to confess that I do not recall having seen minutes of that meeting. And they weren't in the package that was sent out yesterday. So I don't know what the status of those minutes is.
So I would like to ask for the committee to table them and then we will get them to you to review because I could not find them. They're usually done right after the last meeting. So if we could table them and come back to them, I think that would be the best way to handle that. So.
All right, is there any objection to that? Okay, well, that's what we'll do then. We will expect to see minutes from a year ago sometime soon. And then Barb, let me just check with you with regard to minutes for today's meeting. How are we going to handle that?
Last year, I know, Nancy, that you took the minutes. How would you like to handle it? I'm open to anything.
If you could take some notes, I will also take some notes and then I'll draft them and you can correct something I might have missed.
That
which
is
would
our
probably
plan.
be in the voting, so.
That is our plan.
Terrific. Thank you both. Okay, so we'll move on then to the fifth item on the agenda, which is budget items for consideration. And on the agenda, the first item that's listed is transit. Is that still a viable item for consideration today?
Yeah, so it's the transit is kind of perfunctory in that the transit gets 60% of the monies for from this Eco Devo go into the transit fund, so to speak. It's not being utilized and has not been asked for any particular subject or any particular use at this time, which happens a lot of times. So the money will just be continue to stay in the transit fund moving forward. The bi-state has not asked for any money this year for Metrolink, so it's a carryover.
So for the benefit of those who have not participated in these meetings previously, that funding that Nancy just described has been going into a reserve fund to be used as a city's match and for other related purposes having to do with the expansion of the Metrolink system along Jefferson Avenue. Correct, Nancy?
Correct. Yes, that is correct.
And there's a substantial sum that has been accumulated over the years, and it will be considerably greater as of today. And so obviously at some point in the near future, I guess that's going to beg the question about what is the fate or the destiny of that program.
So I can give you a little update on the program in that they are in the process of moving forward still with the new administration on funding the Green Line expansion, which would go from the Green Line, which would be an expansion of MetroLink from Jefferson North. And it's about 10 stops that are currently underway through community meetings to figure out what they're going to do. But it's an extremely expensive proposal. So we would need money from the federal government in order to actually build the train. But they are still moving forward with all the pieces that they have to do prior to actually building it, which is they have to have X amount of community meetings. They have to show that they have a certain level of desirability and functioning and economic viability in order to build the transit. So that's what they've been working on now. We will have to make a lot of, not a lot, but some accommodations on, people don't usually know this, but some of the intersections off of Jefferson are actually controlled by MoDOT, not by the city. And some streets we are controlled by the city that should probably have been under MoDOT. So we are trying to peel the onion back and figure out which goes where and who would be responsible for what going forward. So those are all early bird discussions at this point, because we still have to figure out how to get long-term funding for the plan. So.
Good. Thank you. Are there any questions from anybody on the board regarding what Nancy just said?
Will we be able to get a list of or amount of what's in that transit fund?
Yes, I'm looking to tell you how much is in it now and then what is going to be in it moving forward. I mean, it will increase, but it's close to 85 or 90 million in the previous years. Last year, they asked to take 10 million for some work that they were working on, which we approved. And so now we're putting money back into this fund. But the way that ordinance and ballot initiative was worded, 10% automatic, 60% goes into MetroLink, and then the rest is divided up by the others.
Thank you.
Does that respond to your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Chair,
All right.
may I add the ordinance is 70435. So if this member or anybody else would like to, actually visually see it, that's where you'd go.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, any additional questions or comments regarding the transit matter? Hearing none, we will move then to item B, which is neighborhood revitalization. And under that, there are two categories, the first of which is Planning and Urban Design Agency. Don?
Good morning, everybody. Nancy, are you showing the screen of the materials that was sent to the board?
I can if you aren't.
If you would, that would be helpful.
I also have it pulled up if you want me to share my screen.
Yes, go ahead, Christine, because we all know I'm not being sarcastic, Denise. Christine is much better at this than me.
So one of the nice things that I'll just intersect when seeing Christine on here is just go back to the money that Nancy mentioned that we've used, the $10 million. My word, it's all gone to very productive research consultants to set the groundwork and tire kick the MetroLink expansion. And the long story short is prior to EcoDevo, we would not have had that money to do that and be as prepared as we are. But as Nancy says, things have changed in the realm of the federal government, as you should say. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for convening today. Jim, it's great to see you. You and I are at the very first meeting, and I think I've missed more than you have. But I'm the executive director of the Planning and Urban Design Agency. And what you can see before you is two things. It's a tabulation that shows what our last year's allocation was on the right-hand side. And then it's how we're plugging in for this year in our request. As we've noticed over the years, there is the tax revenue that comes in each year. That is a fluctuating amount. And then as we've gone through COVID and such, we've had times where the money rolls over and is quite large. At the moment, at this time, what you are seeing is our fiscal year 26 request for the Planning and Urban Design Agency, Department 141 of the City of St. Louis. And it really is all constituted in that element of what the chairman said is neighborhood revitalization. We're the Planning and Urban Design Agency. We use these funds to be implementing our neighborhood planning program, which has numerous spots in the city where we're engaging. We have consultants responding to an RFP from this year's EcoDevo money to be out in our neighborhoods, supervised by Jonathan Roper, a city planning executive at Planning and Urban Design. And as you can see, the top portion of our request relates to the staffing that goes along with Jonathan for getting this done. Some of the needs for materials and supplies, our context of being in 1520 for things that we need to do this right and in the professional manner that we've been doing. I will tell you, our consultants that we've been able to select and Jonathan's been managing, have been doing a terrific job. And it's a diversity of teams, meaning there are citizen engagement folks, there are professional planners, there are researchers, there are finance folks, et cetera, et cetera. So in the top part of this, for the personnel, we're keeping things so that we can keep that staff. That's very important. And at the bottom goes into contractual and other services. And it's a list there. It refers to some of the things that through city government, they're in this category, whether we're doing our computers or some of the travel that we might do to be participating in conferences and membership fees and such. Those are related to our operations. And then there are 4 items at the bottom, which are the last 4, which are contractual things that we do. In this go around, you will see that we have line items only in asking for 2 of those 4 line items. And that's a deep breath from our overall pot of money available in EcoDevo. The stabilization and marketing was funds that we would pass through to SODC to participate in helping do some work with LRA properties. They're finding another source. Neighborhood planning is what I just talked about with Jonathan. This is an amount of $350,000. It's not as robust as in years past. And in a way, one of the things that will keep Jonathan's staff busy is our consultants that we're procuring now with current year EcoDevo money. So they'll be, most of their work will occur in fiscal year 26 and supervised by Jonathan. The $335,000 is an addition for another area next year and some preliminary steps in neighborhoods that we're moving to. Frankly, we've been lucky that there are some philanthropic folks that have participated in the past in helping with consulting services for neighborhoods. We've had some discussion with them for that. Community planning was also a line item that comes, so neighborhood planning comes into planning and urban design. Community planning comes into planning and urban design. And 0, a nice round number, but I'll add the very important and fundamental thing that the city has just achieved, just adopted it at the Planning Commission, was using funds to do the overall comprehensive strategic land use plan, otherwise called the comprehensive plan, the general plan for the city, for over a year in progress, and it's been consummated and adopted. It's an excellent resource for guiding the city as we go forward, and neighborhood plannings come in to supplement that. The last one, which is listed, and Paul uses this term as a subsidy, Paul from the budget division uses this word subsidy to SLDC. SODC as the independent economic development arm, this is how we, in this general topic of working on improving neighborhoods and helping neighborhoods, we, the city, get some money to them for those services. And in this case, it's $530,000 in our line item this year. Last year it was 630. And it goes to SODC from us, they bill, and we have an arrangement with them to provide their neighborhood planning transition specialists, which are folks from St. Louis Development Corporation that are assigned to every neighborhood in town to assist with all things related to development, help with, in particular, in the Project Connect area, which is doing a neighborhood plan that started some time ago. And simply that is funding from us to the key services that SLDC provides. So there is it in print. You've heard me talk a bit, and I'll just answer any questions or proceed however Nancy would like me to go.
Okay, so
Don, you're no longer
Christine-
sharing your screen properly.
Christine, Scott, sorry, Barbara, Christine, your screen is showing up with all of your other stuff on it. Your emails.
There we go.
Okay, and Noel has joined. Okay. Does
Good.
anyone, I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead.
All right, so let me ask first, are there any questions from board members regarding Don's presentation?
Yes, hi, I have a few questions. Under your rental and non-capital leases, I see that your land and building and your office rental leases have gone down from the 25 approved budget to your request. Can you just give an explanation on why?
Sure.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing, but just
It is a good thing. And it's also a good thing, I'll just do a generic thing. We're at 1520 Market on the second floor. And we occupy this space and have now for about 10 years with our colleagues at St. Louis Development Corporation, the Community Development Agency, and April Ford Griffin and Affordable Housing. When we moved in, we had the sub arrangement with the city such that we took on SODC as the ability to do this, renovations of this floor. And the paying off of those renovations is now just about done. And hence, that's why the reduction in that request.
okay, thank you.
Come visit sometime. It's we're well suited and professional, and you'll see some of what we do.
I will take you up on that, as long as you have donuts. I don't know if I can say that on here, so strike that on the record.
I think you indicated that you had multiple questions. Is there?
Oh, I did. One more question. Thank you, sir. I missed the part about the community planning, the budget going to zero. One more time, could you just quickly explain why the approved budget of 750 for 25 and now there's zero? I just missed that portion.
The simple thing is, over the last year plus, we've worked so hard on this particular endeavor called producing the strategic land use plan, otherwise known as the comprehensive plan for the city. We wrapped that up. The bow's not completely tight, but 99% done just in the last months or so. And so it was a start and stop effort. And so this coming year, we're pleased to have it in the adoption mode, and the things that we do with it is really implement it and use it, as opposed to do more work on it. Therefore, we don't need consulting fees to any great extent to doing more work, because the bow's been tied around it.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all my questions.
And it's a terrific thing for the city. Terrific thing.
Okay, are there other questions or comments from board members? I have one question for you, Don. Could you elaborate for a moment on the neighborhood planning line item? And I'm interested in hearing two things. The first is what was accomplished or what has been accomplished so far in FY 25. And you mentioned in your presentation that the $335,000 would allow funding for planning for an additional neighborhood. And I'm wondering if there's any specificity about which neighborhood that might be.
Okay, so I'm going to do two things. I'm going to, one, Jonathan Roper, who's the director, or excuse me, the city planning executive and runs the neighborhood planning program, is going to answer what's been accomplished and what's undergoing now, and what's in the pipeline from this current year's selection of consultants. Next year, it's a smaller number, in part because we're going to roll over this year, and the 335 is used because we think we're going to have a little supplemental that might be needed for one of those geographies that we're funding primarily from this year. And second is we're going to do a little bit more proactive work in an area that we hope to do much later, completely as a neighborhood plan, but do some preliminary work early in fiscal year 26, but not the full body until the end. So with that, if that helps you for moving forward, I'd love to have Jonathan say a few things about all the great things that are going on out in the neighborhoods right now and in the past. Jonathan, if that's okay, Jim?
Yes, please.
Well, thank you, Don, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Chairman. I am Jonathan Roper, as Don mentioned, the City Planning Executive for Neighborhood Planning. And Neighborhood Planning in the last fiscal year 25, we'll start with just 25. We have plan areas 1 through 3 have been initiated, and this included 8 neighborhoods. And there was last year after a request for proposal from a selection committee, we did end up selecting 3 firms for the 8 neighborhoods, and they launched last year in the second half of last year. And we're looking to wrap up adoption of those plans later at the end of this year, 2025. The plan areas 4 through 6. Currently, we are going through that request for proposal process currently. And then we would hope to launch, this would include 11 neighborhoods this year. So plan areas 4 through 6, we went from 8 neighborhoods to 11 neighborhoods, and we would begin later this year as well. I would also note planning staff has also been helping with the Project Connect, our planning process around the NGA, which 6 neighborhoods, so providing that support and help as well. We've been doing so since 2021, and then beyond that, or before then. The funds currently, with these funds, the 335 would fund plan area.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
The funds this year, what's in the pipeline is I mentioned plan areas 4 through 6, and the funding will partially fund plan area 5 between this fiscal year and last fiscal year, and then plan area 7, where we would look, those areas are 6 areas south, which include Dutchtown, Gravois Park, Benton Park West, Benton Park, Marine Villa, and Gravois Park, Marine Villa, Mount Pleasant.
So Jim, I'm going to ask Jonathan just do a couple of tranches. One of the things we used is the word cluster, in that we're having consultants employed to do a number of neighborhoods all as one identified by the Planning Commission cluster. So there's a great number of neighborhoods. And so if we would, Jonathan, let's talk about the ones that have been done, the ones ongoing, and the ones that we're just about ready to procure in terms of number of neighborhoods that we've been in.
Yes, so right now we're looking to, this year, we would hope to adopt 4 neighborhood plans, 4 different neighborhood geography or the clusters.
How many neighborhoods?
There would be 14 in total in there.
Mm.
So the 6 from Project Connect and the 8 from Plan Areas 1 through 3. And right now we're initiating with 11 neighborhoods. One of the big ones that we have going is also Plan Area 6, which includes the Mark Twain I-70 Industrial. We have a huge opportunity. The federal sites, opportunity sites there. So we're working with SLDC again. So we also have that privilege to work on that too.
And just a
Right.
technical part for that, Jim, is we have a formal city procurement selection committee that Jonathan and the RFP that's gone out, we get terrific responses. We're now narrowed down. This is using the 25 fiscal year funds. That selection committee is meeting next week to do the interviews to select the consultants that will ultimately be employed in doing how many neighborhoods from
11.
those consultants will be doing 11 neighborhoods as soon as the contract is signed and we obligate fiscal year 25 money.
Thank you. That's all very helpful. The bottom line is a lot of progress has been made, and that's really what I was hoping to hear. Thank you. I'll ask one more time. Are there any questions from anybody on this call that you want to direct to Don?
Chair, may I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
I just want to make sure for the minutes, Don, Director, your request was $530,000, and I'm looking at the fiscal year 26 ask. It looks like 430,000. I just want to make sure I have the right number.
Which item?
The total ask for today.
Our total ask for today is $1,988,256.
Okay.
So,
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, you're right. I think I referred to that 530 as at the bottom of the list. No, it's not the total of the list. It's the last bottom line item. But our total ask is $1,988,256, and that's a combination of rollover funds and this year's available funds from the tax.
Thank you.
any questions about any of that? Or hearing none, and I'll ask, is there a motion on this request?
I move that we approve the request from the Planning and Urban Design Agency to allocate EcoDevo sales tax money.
Second,
And who seconded, please?
April Griffin.
Thank you, April. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I will then call the question. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, Chair, you
Aye.
have historically called a roll. Would you like
Okay.
to do that?
I had forgotten that. I'm sorry, Barb. Go ahead, call the roll, please.
So,
Uh,
April, do you want me to call the roll, Barbara, or are you
No,
comfortable?
that's fine.
April Griffin,
Aye.
Christine Ingracia,
Aye.
Donald Malone,
Aye.
Kimberly Johnson,
Aye.
Rich Bradley,
Aye.
and I'm not sure on this committee if the chair votes, but Jim Dwyer.
Aye.
Okay, so we have unanimous 6 yes voting yes on this.
All right, thank you. We'll
One
move
thing
on.
I'll make note, Jim, if any of you do want to come and visit us, call us in advance and we'll tell us what type of donuts.
Great. Thank you. All right, we're on now to sub-item B under neighborhood revitalization, which is the Community Development Agency.
Oh, Noel, you're on mute.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
The answer here at CDA, by the way, is typically John's Donuts, but I'm coming to you live today from the 21st floor of the Railway Exchange Building. It's good to see everyone. Fortunately, I had a conflict at this time. I asked Kevin Ellison on our team to join so that he can share his screen and go through some slides for y'all.
I do need, okay, Christina stops sharing. Okay, there we go.
And in the meantime, you can enjoy a view here. It needs a little work, but thanks, Kevin. But can you actually go to the slide deck? This is a map of neighborhood transformation investments, which I will share an interactive copy of with the group as I go through the presentation. Next slide, and of course, this is the FY26 budget, actually. So starting off with an update, want to share the work that CDA has done over the past year. And our budget included funding for a public information officer who's done a lot of great work to get our work out in the news. And that's the next slide, CDA in the news. We've also contracted with LRA and SLDC to stabilize the Sarah Luke Cafe and Chuck Berry House. We've also been working with the Vacancy Collaborative on a vacancy strategy initiative, which there's a lot of slides on towards the end of this presentation. If we have time to go through them all, we have a contract with Ptolemy, which is a data warehouse that works with a lot of cities across the country. They're based out of Boston, essentially aggregates dozens and dozens of data sets onto a mapping software that is really essential for a lot of different programs across the city, from LRA to problem properties and others. We've funded a few graphic design services out of this fund with small dollar amounts, about 5,000 in total, to create CDA's logo, create a trifold, create our annual report. And then we've also contracted 150,000 with Employment Connection to do our Section 3 workforce development, recruitment, and certification work. And that essentially means reaching out to low to moderate income individuals in the neighborhoods where CDA is developing housing and connecting them to job opportunities. In addition to this, in the past year, we ran for the first time our neighborhood plan implementation notice of funding availability. And I think this is really important for the committee to understand because this is in fact what the original purpose of the neighborhood revitalization funds under Ordinance 70435. If you look at that ordinance, it appropriates funds to 5 categories: 60% for transit, 10% for public safety, 10% for infrastructure, 10% for workforce development, and 10% for neighborhood revitalization. And it has an exhibit for each of these uses. And the neighborhood revitalization exhibit details a program. It says that these funds will be allocated to CDA to run a neighborhood plan implementation program substantially in accordance with Choice Neighborhoods. That was an Obama era program at HUD that was really designed to bring targeted, focused, place-based investment, community-driven investment to cities across the country. And so the purpose here of Ordinance 70435 and the Neighborhood Revitalization Funds was to create a locally funded version of this program designed to help neighborhood associations, CDCs, and other grassroots groups implement their neighborhood plans, because we know we do a lot of planning, and tragically, historically over the last 50 years, a lot of these plans have gathered dust on a shelf, and we need to implement them. And so we ran this notice of funding availability, and we awarded 2 awards. We awarded Art Place $800,000 and Cornerstone $800,000 respectively to implement the We Collab plan in the West End and to implement the Gravois Jefferson plan in Dutchtown. And both of these plans came out of over 100 public meetings and neighborhood meetings. Both plans have been approved and adopted by the Planning Commission. And further on in this slide deck, you'll see a little bit about the work that both organizations are going to be doing with this award. So for our FY26 proposed budget, what we originally proposed was a budget of $1.752 million, including $97,000 for our public information officer, $155,000 to continue our work with the Vacancy Collaborative, Ptolemy, and Design Services, and finally $1.5 million, most importantly, to continue doing our neighborhood plan implementation grants. Today, however, at the request of the mayor's office and to accommodate the planning department's appropriation, as well as the need to fund the neighborhood managers, and given limited funds, we are adjusting this budget request to a total of $1,396,921. That includes still the $97,219.63 for our public information officer, $155,000 for professional services, but adjusts our neighborhood plan implementation grants downwards to $1,144,701.29. So $1,144,701.29. If we go to the next slide. Can we go to the next slide? There's a variety of news stories about the work that we've been doing. And this is actually where I want to zoom in. This is an interactive map. And Kevin, if you could drop a link in the chat. This is an interactive map of over $250 million in investments across the city. It starts with housing. CDA, in partnership with SLDC and the Affordable Housing Commission, has committed over $100 million, about $105 million, towards the development of over 3,500 affordable units across the city. This is leveraging about $750 million in private capital for a total of over $850 million in housing development that is presently underway. And again, if you look at that map, you can click around it, you can see details about every project. But it goes beyond subsidizing the production and preservation of housing. We've also dramatically expanded our home repair program, whereas in 2022, we spent about $2 million a year on around 100 home repairs a year. In 23 and 24, we spent over $5 million a year, thanks to an infusion of ARPA funds, on about 300 home repairs a year. So dramatically expanding that pipeline and really keeping hundreds of families and households in their homes, allowing seniors to age in place, preventing vacancy, preserving the fabric of our neighborhoods. We've also worked with SLDC to expand a down payment assistance program, and with the Department of Human Services to create a real property tax forgiveness program, which has helped over 100 households stay in their home and protected them from losing their homes to foreclosure. Again, this is all mapped here. We've also worked with LRA and the building division on a variety of building stabilization and demolition and board up programs, all of which are mapped, including over 1,000 demolitions in the past 4 years, and a couple of hundred building stabilizations, including both Prop NS stabilizations of LRA publicly owned buildings, as well as building division, private vacant building stabilizations designed to hold problem property owners accountable. We've also run neighborhood transformation grants, including beautification grants for over a dozen community gardens and orchards across the city, proactive development grants, including one to help support the development of a youth community golf complex, and many others to support the proactive development of projects across the city. Capacity building grants to small nonprofits to support their continued existence, community development block grants, that's our normal historic CDBG program, as well as partnering with RAC on the St. Louis mural project. And we actually partnered with RAC to do two murals in every ward, but also to provide over $8 million in operating and program support grants to arts organizations across the city. With respect to business and development, we've partnered with SLDC on North City grants, small business grants. SLDC incentives are also mapped here, as are facade improvement grants. And then finally, you can see a variety of investments into community assets, including those arts organization grants I mentioned earlier, free public Wi-Fi, which we're standing up with ARPA funds across the city, across parks, over a dozen parks across the city. Health clinics, we've supported 4 federally qualified health centers: People's Health Center, Care STL, Affinia, and Family Care, with 2 new facilities and repairs to 2 other facilities, and those are mapped there. And that was actually matched by the state. So the city's $13 million investment has supported well over $25 million of work. Early childcare grants, over $4 million in grants there to a variety of childcare organizations, including support. This is ceasing to be germane. I'm sorry. I'm just going through this list here, and I want to focus back in on the economic development sales tax. The point of this is a lot of work is going on across the city to drive economic development, to empower, develop, and transform neighborhoods across our city. And this does connect back to the economic development sales tax, because this map was produced in partnership with the Vacancy Collaborative, which is funded out of the economic development sales tax. If we go down to the next slide. Here you see a little information about the notice of funding availability that we put out last year, and which resulted in the awards to Cornerstone and to Art Place. And then I'll talk a little bit about the work that they're each doing with these funds. Next slide. Art Place is using $360,000 of their $800,000 award to rehab a vacant building into a community gallery and take the LRA lot next door and make it a public art garden. They're also spending $440,000 to create and install other public art, including benches and other art across their footprint, including with a particular focus around Marquette Park. And they're also using the funds to support a goal of the Gravois Jefferson Plan, which is to establish a community land trust and mixed income neighborhood trust, and to facilitate an ongoing resident steering committee to oversee all of this work and engage in ongoing communications with residents in the community. Next slide. Cornerstone is using $540,000 of these funds to invest into the intersection at Maple and Goodfellow, specifically helping a local cafe and grocery store conduct facade improvements, building a farmer's market space immediately next door to that community-driven cafe and grocery store, and to do some street calming at that intersection to improve safety and walkability. And again, this all emerges directly from the goals of that neighborhood plan. And then they're also spending $180,000 investing into Gwen Giles Park and the terminus of the Hodemont tracks, and beautification around the Hodemont tracks, designed to ensure that this really feels like a place, and is something that inspires folks to go down the Hodemont tracks and engage with the neighborhood. And then you'll note that this adds up to $720,000. That's because there's another $80,000, 10% of the grant set aside for admin and staff for the We Collab and Cornerstone team. Next slide. Questions? There's some slides behind this on the vacancy strategy initiative and Chuck Berry house stabilization, which we can go through if we need to, if anyone has any questions, but happy to take your questions at this time.
Well, that's a lot to unbundle, but we'll see. Let me ask the board members, are there questions on any aspect of what was just presented? I guess they were all, like me, all overwhelmed by the volume of information.
Oh,
okay,
Jim, I would like to suggest if Noel and Kevin can make it into something we can share with the board after the committee afterwards, just so they can have it and review it later. It doesn't impact the vote, what's being spent, but I think it will help people be able to re-see and what they're actually doing.
Yeah,
in
we
the, they get asked later, they would have more information than just a slide that they see and then don't see again. So if there's a way you can send that to me, I'll send it out to the committee.
I've
Yeah,
got
we-
I was gonna say, I'm sorry, Noel, I've got the slide presentation and the map both in the form of a PDF that can easily.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd be happy to send that around, and then really do encourage the committee members to explore the interactive map. You can filter projects by fund source, by neighborhood, by the different programs. You can run reports, and so it's really a tool designed to help you see the work that the city's development agencies are doing across the city.
Great. Good, excellent. Okay, let me ask again then, are there any questions from board members regarding this presentation before we consider the request?
I just want to have clarity. I'm basing it on the email documentation that we received. Your FY26 budget proposal is the CDA alternative that was shown on the table. Is that correct?
The CDAs, unless the mayor's office can find $355,000 in additional funding for PDA in the budget, CDA's request is going to be adjusted downwards to accommodate for PDA's budget to $1,396,921.
Okay.
That's actually what you're being asked to vote on today.
Yes, that is the number. So any further discussion? May I have a motion on this request?
I move that we approve the request.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none.
Previous roll.
There we go. Previous roll. Barb,
Is anyone opposed? Any member opposed? Please indicate right now. I hear none. So
why don't you give a one sentence or a two sentence description of what the previous roll means for those who may not understand?
Sure, of course. President Bradley has asked for the previous roll, which was unanimous, to approve that of the recommendation to the Board of Aldermen in the sum in this stated in the motion. If anybody would like to vote differently than they voted in the first motion, this is the time to voice that. If no one is opposed to the previous roll, then we'll accept that and move on. That this vote roll was unanimous. This vote was unanimous.
All right, so having heard that explanation, is there anyone who does not want to cast a favorable vote, a positive vote in this matter? All right, thank you. The motion carries unanimously. We will move, and thank you, Noel, for your presentation.
Thank you.
So we move now to the next category of workforce development. And there again are two items under that category, the first of which is SLATE. Is there someone prepared to present for SLATE?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Demi Braggs, and let me share my screen with you all. I have a slide. All right. All right. Good morning, everyone. I'm here to present our fiscal year 26 Eco Depot budget. I'm going to focus on key few areas and add more specifically those areas that saw a significant increase or decrease across the 2 fiscal years. What you'll notice is Slate X this year is $266,521.15 less than we were awarded the previous year. This year's Slate is celebrating 50 years. That is 50 years of job seekers to education, employment and training opportunities, and helping employers find talented and skilled workers to meet our organizational needs. For fiscal year 24, Slate connected 11,927 metro area residents to job center services, which far exceed our goal of 7,000 clients. These services included, but were not limited to, awarding secondary and post-secondary education credentials, industry-recognized certifications, paid training opportunities, paid work experience, year-round youth jobs, supportive services, incentives, case management and wraparound services, life skill training, financial literacy and empowerment, resume building, job readiness training, job search, job placement assistance to those who enter our agency doors, and those we met in the community. In fiscal year 25, our goal is to connect 12,000 job seekers. And in 26, we have an aggressive goal of 15,000 individuals. This work is made possible through 8 federal, state, and locally funded grants, 7 ARPA projects, and support from the EcoDevo Fund. The city relies on over $170 million in federal funds to deliver services within the region. Slate annual budget consists of 31.47% in federal funding, with ARPA funds included, and without ARPA funds. Slate's annual budget consists of 68.53% in federal funds. EcoDevo accounts for 18.34% of Slate's budget. Therefore, this funding is crucial to ensure Slate services go uninterrupted. And in an effort to ensure that Slate services go uninterrupted, the organization is proactively taking the following steps: reviewing and updating our organization's sustainability plan, instituting an in-house hiring freeze, and reevaluating EcoDevo vacant positions, meeting with the mayor's office to discuss additional fund opportunities from the city, secured ASL grant writing services, exploring corporate donors and sponsorships to secure private funds, and increasing fundraising efforts. Our proposed EcoDevo budget request this year is in the amount of $3,516,987, which is a $266,521.15% decrease from the previous year. This brief overview will highlight what the agency is accomplishing with funds that were provided for the current fiscal year and what we will be able to accomplish within the upcoming fiscal year with these funds we're now requesting. In the area of computer science services and facilities and grounds, Slate is requesting a decrease from $60,000 to $30,000 in computer science and from computer services, and from $1 million to $600,000 in facilities and grounds. In fiscal year 25, under computer services, Slate was able to purchase new hardware and software for computer labs and testing centers within Slate. Because we were able to make those purchases this year, we are able to make cuts for the next year. However, with the $30,000 we are requesting, we will be able to purchase a few new computers, provide updates, and new software for our 2 satellite office locations. In the fiscal year 25, under facilities and grounds, Slate was able to renovate our facilities by securing a section off our fiscal department and executive area, creating storage space for fiscal and program files, and creating a classroom space for AEO instruction. We were able to install panic buttons, security cameras, and monitors for safety purposes throughout the agency. With the funds we're requesting for the upcoming fiscal year, we plan to have satellite office in the Monarch and North St. Louis, and we plan to add a South City location to make services accessible in the community for residents. In the area of transportation, education, and training and audit services, Slate is requesting $50,000 in transportation which is a 42,500 increase, these numbers, which will allow for the purchase of a new van to transport program participants to work sites, interviews, community service projects, and employment-related activities, along with providing maintenance for the vehicle. This will allow the purchase of parking validations and for employers and job seekers to attend SLATE's monthly hiring fairs and activities. In education and training, SLATE is requesting $50,000, which is a $50,000 decrease from the previous fiscal year. These funds will provide fewer professional development trainings for staff, since the majority of those trainings were provided in 25. But these trainings will equip staff with necessary credentials to expand their scope of work. SLATE is requesting $150,000, which is $25,000 decrease from the previous fiscal year for auditing services, which will allow SLATE to continue to contract with Armanino to provide fiscal and programmatic monitoring. The agency will be able to utilize funds from the previous year to supplement the difference. In the areas of professional services and management and consulting, SLATE is requesting $450,000 in an effort to continue to contract for grant writing services as we look to alternative sources of funding in the event of a federal reduction in funds, marketing services, and provide supplemental funding to those federal programs that are in jeopardy to ensure continuous and uninterrupted services. For management and consulting, we're asking for $75,000, which is a $75,000 decrease from the previous year. This will allow SLATE to continue to contract with outside consultants for economic and workforce data analysis and research to expand our reach and ensure we are meeting the region's workforce needs. Finally, in the area of, where'd you go? It should be on. Operations subcontract, we're asking for $170,000, which is $130,000 decrease from the previous year. During the current year, we expanded our Gateway Go program, which provides free Metro passes to over 1,500 SLPS students and those using SLATE's program. And it is our plan to continue this project. These funds will also allow us to provide gap funding to ensure program services do not go uninterrupted while waiting on awards from grantors. In administrative costs, we are requesting $150,000, which is $50,000 decrease from the previous year. These funds will provide match dollars towards new grants we seek because match funds is often required when seeking new opportunities. Finally, because SLATE executes over 100 contracts per year, SLATE has an assigned legal counsel from the City Council's office. In the past, the City Council's office has covered the majority of this individual's salary. Although this person provides services solely on site to SLATE, therefore this $75,000 will go to support the majority of their individual salary. So in concluding, we are asking for $3,516,987 from EcoDevo for fiscal year 26.
Okay, thank you for that presentation. I will ask, as usual, if there are questions or comments from any member of the EcoDevo board.
I don't have any questions, but it would be great to also receive the slide deck from this.
Yes, agreed.
Okay.
So I have I have a clarification thing, Ms. Bragg. The amount of money in the fund to be transferred is the amount of money that's brought in for this fiscal year is 2.4 million and change. Are you carrying over the other money to get to the 3.5 total?
If possible, yes.
Well, no, you're able to carry over money, but I think people need to know that you're carrying over funds as they make a decision on the proposal. You can carry over the funds because for this fiscal year, there's only 2.4 in the budget for workforce development, which you're asking to all be allocated to you, which is fine. But then your number is higher. And I think from talking to the director, you have carryover money, which you're asking to be carried over, which is how you get to the 3.5.
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody understood that. They have not used all the money that was appropriated in fiscal year 25. So they want to carry that over to do their programming in fiscal year 26, which is allowed, but I just want to make sure we all know that when you vote.
Let's back up one step and let me ask you to confirm that the 2,000,004 number, which I would like to get more precisely, I just have X's after the 2,000,004, but whatever that number is that calculated by the 10% factor against the revenue stream?
Yes, I sent an email separately, and I apologize for this, is that the total amount of money that from the stream, as you referred to it, was $24,017,000 a year. And of that, $14,410,200 is going to transportation. And then each of the divisions ends up with the it's $2,401,700.
401,700. Okay, so the figure that this board will be considering is that 2,000,004 figure, not 3,516,000.
Yes and no. Yes, for this fiscal year, but we also have to take into consideration that we can roll over, and we have to roll it over as part of the motion.
So we are basically recommending approval of the rollover plus the fresh funds of 2,000,004.
Correct.
Good, thank you for that clarification.
No problem.
And just kind of math real quick, I apologize.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we saying that they have approximately $1.1 million in carryover or rollover funds?
Yes. And just for clarification, for many years, lots of people were rolling over a lot of money. There'll be one other rollover, but most of it, people have begun to spend down because it was rolling over. It gets to be too much sitting, not being used. And with this last couple of years, they've begun to use more of the funds, which is a good thing.
Further questions or comments? And Barb, I'm going to assume that you have the numbers precisely.
And I do too.
All right, good. So we have two numbers in front of us. This year's allocation of 10% of the available resources, $2,401,700 plus a rollover of unallocated funds from previous years for a total of $3,516,987. Any questions on those numbers? Go ahead.
Move that we approve the rollover allocation and the additional funding for next fiscal year for workforce development for SLATE.
Second.
Okay, was that April?
Yes.
Good. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Previous roll.
Any objection? All right, the motion carries unanimously. And then the next item is Department of Human Services. And there was a revised document, I believe, that was circulated earlier this morning. So who is who's on board to present? for-
Valerie Russell, who's the
I am here.
Deputy Director of Department of Human Services.
Good, thank you.
Good morning to the Economic Development Board. I think what I am going to share will clear up some confusion relative to why there was a vote to provide the entire 2.4 million to SLATE under the workforce development line item in the economic development budget. The Department of Human Services, due to a variety of factors, has not utilized the funds that were appropriated to us in 2025. We are therefore not asking for a new appropriation for 2026. Having said that, the funds that have been appropriated for the Economic Development Board for Workforce Development, we are in agreement that those would go to SLATE. We are asking for permission to roll over the funds that remain from the FY25 allocation to the Department of Human Services, and we will utilize those funds through the process that the ordinance requires, which is to provide services and activities for youth between the ages of 16 and 24. If the board would like more information regarding the eventual use, I can go into detail. However, I think that what we are asking is that the 2.4 go to SLATE, that we are allowed to roll over funds we did not expend from the 2025 allocation. That's approximately at this point in time, $879,512. That fund will most likely be short, a little bit short of that dollar amount when the budget year changes in July 1, but that is what we are requesting.
Good. Thank you for that clarification. So no additional fresh funds, but authorization to roll over $879,512 in funds previously allocated but not dispersed.
Correct.
Good, thank you. Any questions or comments on that presentation and that request?
SLATE would be receiving an additional 2.4 million next fiscal year.
Yes. No. The 2.4 you voted on with the rollover is it. There's not a split between 2.4 and between SLATE and DHS, which has happened all the previous years.
Okay, I apologize. I might just need a little bit more clarification.
I can provide that as well. In the past, the funds that had been appropriated for workforce development was an even split between SLATE and the Department of Human Services, whatever that dollar amount was. Had we requested funds this year, then that 2.4 would be split, but we are asking not to get a new appropriation for FY26 and to use the funds that we currently have and to roll those over.
Thank you so much.
Does that clarify it for everyone, to everyone's satisfaction? All right, good. Any further questions or comments? All right, may I have a motion?
I move that we approve the rollover allocation to the Department of Human Services.
So
Thank you.
moved. Previous role.
All right, we have a motion, a second, and a request for the previous role. Is there any objection to this, to granting this proposal or authorizing this? All right, hearing none, previous role is adopted. It's a unanimous vote in favor of this request to roll over the $879,000. And thank you for that presentation. And then finally, the final item on the agenda is public safety, CEMA. And I believe that we are supposed to be working from a document that was circulated previously and that there is not going to be anyone here to present in person. Is that correct?
I will present, and if I need help, Rich Bradley can step in. What this is you received a letter from Sarah Russell, who is the CEMA director for the city. And what they're asking for, thank you, Christine, is they're asking that we have this program called Notify STL, and we use it to help us with tornado warnings, storm warnings, etc. And in order to continue that, they need an additional $100,000 for funding of this technology. We have been doing this regularly, and we're asking the board to agree to do that. The rest of the second piece of this is that the rest of the funds in public safety, which is $2,301,700, would go to the PSAP, which is the 911 center, and the building of that, which has also been the way that this public safety money has been split over the last few years. So we have broken ground on the 911 center, and we're putting the monies together to be able to build that center going forward. And they should be, they're looking at design right now and architectural work, and then eventually it will get built when they go through that process. And Rich Bradley can add to that piece, but that's where we are with the public safety piece. So the 100,000 would allow us to continue with the technology called Notify STL, which everybody on this call should sign up for, because it does give you all of the upgrades. In previous years, just so people know, we are also upgrading, and that's moving forward, is the city has a tornado siren system, and through previous EcoDevo, we have set aside the monies necessary to rebuild that, and that is in process as well. So because not everybody in the city uses computers or has smartphones, we're holding on to the siren system in cases of emergencies. And also, you know, technology is great, but sometimes the technology, if the technology fails, we would still have the siren system. So that's what we've been doing in the past. So what we're asking under public safety is for 100,000 of the monies to be dedicated to the Notify STL program, and the other 2,301,700 would go towards the PSAP, the building of the 911 center.
Questions on that, on any aspect of that? Rich, Bradley, can you give us an update on top of what Nancy just said regarding the status of the new 911 center?
Yes, I can. And first of all, I want to apologize to everybody that I am not in town. I am out of town on vacation in sunny Florida, and my service here keeps reloading. So if I break for just a minute, just breathe in and breathe out. I'll be right back to you. So this 911 center PSAP public safety answering point is a result of a study that was completed, the Kim Brower report in 2008. And it talked about a holistic center for emergency response, for police, fire, EMS, citizen service, violence prevention, those type things. And so we went through an extensive design process. The feasibility study is first phase of the design, completed that. Then we completed the final design documents. As everyone's aware, who's been on this committee for a while, we paused that during COVID years because there was question, concerns, and issues with funding. We picked it back up under this administration. And so we currently have funding in the bank. The project is estimated at just about $50 million. We currently have funding for about $41.25 million in the bank. As I noted, the design is completed. We have also received a $10 million public safety grant from the state of Missouri Department of Public Safety. We have ARPA money, there's capital money, and there's certainly EcoDevo money in this for many, many years now that we've been putting together. So right now we still need to come up with an additional $10 million. The stipulation with the state of Missouri grant was that it had to be under contract with a contractor by last June, or we would have forfeited $10 million. So the Jones administration, along with the comptroller and the president of the Board of Aldermen, we worked through this, and we picked up a contractor to begin the process of building. We have had a groundbreaking up there, and they're in the process of helping us work through finalized items like alley vacations, geotechnical surveys, and things of that sort. But it is in contract to be built, and it is scheduled, because of the ARPA funding that is in it, to be completed by December of 26. So this additional $2.301700 would come into this remaining $10 million balance we have. And this $10 million balance, just so you know this, is generally the FF&E, or furnishings, fixture, and equipment. All the equipment that would be outfitted inside of the building, the answering stations and furniture and lockers and desks and phone systems and all these type of things, fiber that would come inside the building. So we're doing this as a rolling project, and that funding would come in here. So does that answer your question, Chair?
Yes, it does. It's very helpful. I think it's probably helpful for a number of people to have a sense of the status of the project, and what I guess is the two things that struck me were the recitation of where you stand financially and what the estimated cost of the project all in is. And then I guess most importantly is the anticipated completion date. And I say that just because of all of the, well, it's obvious, because of all of the concern that has been expressed about inadequacies or unhappiness with the 911 system. So it's good to know that there is substantial progress and an end date in mind. So it looks as though you just froze. Okay, oh no, maybe you were just sitting still. But in any event, any questions or comments further on that topic? The $100,000 split for CEMA and the balance $2,301,700 to as an additional contribution to the construction of the new 911 center. Questions or comments?
Just for clarity, that $2.3 million that's going to the center, that is being deducted for the $10 million that is still needed to fund?
Yes, that is correct. So that 10 million, that's 2.3 million would be deducted from that. And then the balance is what we would still continue on. And, you know, a number of items where it could be capital funds that would pay for that. It could be general funds. It could be general obligation bond funds. But theoretically, what we've done with this over the past number of years is taking it from EcoDevo, this funding, because public safety is a big portion. And of course, I think we would all agree on the call that this center is probably one of the largest public safety needs that we have right now. So that's why we put it here.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Further questions or comments? Hearing none, may I have a motion?
I move that we approve the public safety category request.
Second.
Thank you, and thank
Previous
you.
role.
Pardon, April?
Previous role.
Yes, thank you. Any objection? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously.
So,
And
Jim,
go ahead.
two more things. One is that we talked about it, but we really should approve the transportation movement, and I sent everyone an email on that. It's 60% of the money taken in. It's $14,410,200 that would go into the transportation fund. And I think Paul, the budget department, will be looking for us to have done an appropriation for that as part of this meeting. So I want to raise that. And then the second thing is that there's also $2,401,700 that goes into capital structure, and that just goes into the general capital fund that we have And that, I don't think we talk about specific projects because we have a litany of projects to work through, like without counting water, about 400 million in projects in the city, to infrastructure projects to be eventually gotten through. So that is this, we probably should have a motion on that too, just so we cover everything.
So those are.
And Nancy, on that capital one, just to add a little bit there. So that funding for the citywide capital goes to the city's capital committee, of which Nancy and I are both members of, along with the Board of Aldermen and budget director, so forth. And they are the ones that make recommendations to the Board of E&A and the Board of Aldermen for the expenditures of that funding. So it goes as a lump sum and they do the recommendations.
Thank you. So in both cases, Nancy, and correct me please if I've got this wrong, in both cases, those are formulaic contributions that are provided for in the ordinance. And it's simply, all you're asking for us to do is to ratify essentially the authorization of those contributions.
Correct, thank you. Better, much better said. Yes, that's what I'm asking.
All right, good. I'm going to take them one at a time so that they are separately recorded in the minutes.
Okay.
So the first one
is the transportation bill for $14,410,200 to go into the transportation fund.
I move that we approve their request.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Previous roll.
There is a second in the previous roll. Any objection to that motion? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously. And the second item, Nancy?
Is for $2,401,700 to go into the city's capital fund, which will then be appropriated by, will then be reviewed by the capital committee and recommended to the Board of Estimate and apportionment for appropriation. Sorry, I'm getting all the A words. So
I think we got it. Thank you. May I have a motion?
I move that we approve the request.
Thank you, April.
Second.
Previous roll.
Thank you. Any objection? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Thank you all. As far as I can tell from the agenda, that completes our business for the day. Is there anything on anyone's mind that should be put on the table or discussed before we adjourn? All right, hearing none, I'll consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you. Any objection? We are adjourned. Thank you all.
Well, thank you
Thanks,
very much for
everybody.
your time.